Hello and welcome. This is the first in a series of 3 special best of episodes. I'm Angela Smith. I'm the ex-wife of Paul Ryder, who he sat down with in the months leading up to his death in July of 2022 to tell his complete life story. I then went on to interview 50 people whose lives he touched, and I put the whole thing together as the Paul Ryder tapes. We have picked the very best bits of the 51 episodes released so far in the series and made them into a 3-part mini compilation series just for you. Thank you to everybody who's voted for their favourite parts. I hope all of your choices made it into the final mix. Here we go.
Right, go on, start. Getting grilled off my ex-wife for a podcast.
Okay, are we ready? Are we recording already? Okay. Do we need a disclaimer at the beginning? We don't, do we? Are we going to be talking about, are we going to be using naughty words and talking about sex? Because if so, we have to do a disclaimer. Should we just do one anyway, just in case?
Do one because I'm a swearer.
All right, so, warning, this podcast may involve some naughty words and maybe some talk about drugs, maybe some graphic talk about drug use, and maybe a bit of sex, actually. Let's be honest. I mean, come on, you've not led exactly a monk-style life, have you? So, okay, warning, this podcast might not be suitable for everybody. And I find, actually, when we do announcements like that at the beginning, it means more people want to listen anyway.
Oh, that sounds good. But okay. I'm definitely a swearer, so I'm glad you've done a disclaimer.
All right, brilliant. So, welcome to the Paul Ryder podcast.
Hi.
No, I wasn't saying welcome to you. I was saying welcome to the listeners.
Oh, welcome, listeners.
So, this is the Paul Ryder podcast with Paul Ryder, who is the bass player of the Happy Mondays. I said that wrong because it's not the Happy Mondays, is it? It's just Happy Mondays.
It's just Happy Mondays.
Yes. And me, Angela Smith, who's actually the ex-wife of said Paul Ryder, bass player of the Happy Mondays. And the reason that we're doing this is because Paul, for a long, long time, has been saying, I need to write a book, I need to write a book, I need to write a book. But he doesn't actually like writing. So I suggested that instead of him actually writing a book, he could talk a book in a podcast. Mm-hmm. And he said, yeah, but you'll have to ask me questions. I was like, right, well, I can do that. So that's why we're here. Mm-hmm. So what is it that makes you feel like you need to write a book?
Well, there's been a lot of rumours, exaggeration, stuff that's been made up. There's a lot of stuff to put right. Okay. And I think it's time.
Time to set the record straight.
Like, one big thing is that we didn't send factory records under. The Mondays never did that. Factory went bust, owing us nearly £1 million.
Really? I never knew that.
Yeah, 800,000.
Really? Well, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
Later on, because I think what we're going to do is talk chronologically from the very beginning. We want all the details, all the micro details of your life and story, and the real truth about the story of the Mondays, what really happened, who the characters in the Mondays really are, and all those legends and myths that people have seen in movies. We want to know which bits are true and which aren't, because we know that a lot of it's based on truth, but there's also some exaggeration.
A lot of exaggeration.
So this is really where you're going to get the real truth about the story of the Happy Mondays.
Yeah, if you want to know the truth, keep listening.
We're going to be talking about some sensitive topics. We're going to be talking about drug addiction. Paul's been very vocal about his struggle with addiction, and I have been at the sharp end of that. So.
Oh, yes, you was.
I know.
Have I made amends for that yet?
I don't think you've fully made amends. Do you think you ever can? So we're going to be talking about drug addiction. We're going to be talking about all the various ways and things you did to try and combat your drug addiction. We're going to be talking about infidelity.
Oh.
This this is revenge time for me, isn't it? We're going to be talking about children. We're going to be talking about our son who had cancer and had an extraordinary journey with that. But really, more than anything else, we're going to be talking about the Happy Mondays. And
you did it again. You said the.
I know. I'm sorry. It's just it's a really hard word. It's a hard name to not put a "the" in front of, isn't it?
Yeah.
I've always thought that.
Yeah. You can say that if you want. I don't mind.
Okay. In fact, we're going to jump to. We will go to the very beginning in a second, but there's been a huge legal battle over who owns the name and who came up with the name, and lots of people have different opinions about that. So do you want to start off by absolutely putting the record straight about who came up with the name and what happened?
I came up with the name, me, and it came about through an Echo and the Bunnymen song, The Cutter. There's a line in there that says, "By the happy loss," and we was called The Happy Loss for like 4 days.
I never knew that.
Yeah, but we kept the word happy, and for some reason I changed it to Mondays. Instead of The Happy Loss, it became Happy Mondays.
And is that like a nod and a wink to the fact that you don't have to do a boring day job so that you don't dread Monday anymore?
Oh, I never thought of it like that.
Really, all these years, that's why I thought the band was called that, because suddenly you get to be happy on a Monday.
It's all down to Ian McCulloch.
I love
I blame Ian McCulloch.
I've been playing the Echo and the Bunnymen on repeat for the last 3 months when I drive. It's weird. I've
Love the Bunnymen.
Rediscovered them again.
I saw them last year. They was playing the same festival as the Mondays.
Yeah.
And it was great. I stood at the side of the stage and watched the Bunnymen.
Nice.
Incredible.
Yeah, Ian McCulloch's still got it.
Yeah, Gaz said to him, "Best band in the world," and McCulloch turned around and said, "I know."
Did he? When Paul was a child, his mum and dad opened a fish and chip shop.
Don't mention the chip shop.
Anything that could go wrong did go wrong.
The first day in, Derek pulled the cash drawer out and broke his foot.
The freezer broke, so all the fish went bad.
The woman gave us a number to phone if anything went wrong with the fridge. I phoned this number. The man had been dead 5 years that serviced it.
It was an end terrace. The house was an end terrace, so there's a big gable end wall. People used to kick the ball at it. And he looked out the window one day, so he was kicking the ball, and the ball went straight through and into glass in his eyes, and another disaster.
Then, after that, he'd not shut the door properly on the potato machine that peeled the potatoes, and the door flew open. There was a big stone in that looked like a potato and hit Derek in the eye, and he had a big black eye and a big bruise. And
then he went out to... one day he went out to do the potatoes to make them into chips and got stung by a wasp and collapsed on the floor and turned green. He was allergic to wasp stings.
Oh, wow.
So they just about got him to hospital in time before he died of a wasp sting. Wow. I think that was the final straw. So he started off being in a folk band. Eventually left that and formed a comedy duo with Barry Seddon.
Never mind Patrick Steptoe and all that crap in Oakland. Barry was the world's first test tube baby, 19 years ago. In fact, his birth sign is Pyrex the dish.
Terrible joke, but I love it.
I always wanted fitted wardrobes. And every time we'd save the money up for fitted wardrobes, Derek would buy some other equipment for them. And I had to wait till 4 years ago when I moved here to get me fitted wardrobes, and they were already in the bungalow. But I got them eventually, but then fitted wardrobes have gone out of fashion, haven't they?
When I was 8 years old, I always had Top of the Pops on Thursdays. So it must have been a Thursday night, 8 years old, and David Bowie comes on doing Starman with a big blue acoustic guitar. I'd never seen a blue guitar before in my life, and then he looked like he'd stepped out of another world, and it was like my life changed at that moment.
Well, he was a good-looking kid, you see, so I never had a girlfriend at school. But Paul had a girlfriend all the time. You know, he was like, he had the olive skin, he was a good-looking one, you see.
Paul's mum actually taught at Paul and Shaun's primary school.
They were as different as chalk and cheese, but they were very, very close when they were little. Funnily enough, that would be Sandra. Come and say hello to Angela.
Where are you, Linda?
I'm in the front room.
Oh,
Say hello to Angela.
What is that, you as well?
No, I'm being interviewed.
Linda's been friends with Sandra for more than 30 years, and Sandra also happens to be the mum of Gaz Whelan, the Mondays drummer.
Hey, me and Linda could write a book about these tours, couldn't we?
Oh, definitely.
Oh, hey.
Oh, do you remember Birmingham?
On Friday nights. Stays on
Yeah,
Friday
but
nights.
do you remember Birmingham? Oh, we nearly died. Literally.
No, but I always said to you that you're very bright and very intelligent, but you've just not had a great education. That's my take on you. Like, you've got the basics in, like you've got that basic intelligence and sense of humour, but you obviously didn't really. You didn't go to school though from being about 14, did you?
No, I had a job. So when I was 13, that's when I started wagging school. Wagging school is like skipping school.
Mm-hmm. We were in this hotel and we could see the arena over there and we were here. And there was a great big hedge and we were going to have to walk all the way round.
Yeah.
So we decided we'd climb this hedge.
Well, you know us, we can't do anything. I mean, we're going back a long time, but we weren't very athletic then.
No,
was
but
really?
we were a lot more agile.
Oh, yeah.
So we're climbing the hedge and we got on top with our legs over each side.
I was the best salesman on Saturday. I won every week. Every week I got the best salesman.
And what was the trick?
The trick was not to pester them, just to give them space.
When we realised if we'd have dropped, we'd have been right inside a dam. It was a massive, big lake.
We were stupid, being clever, taking a shortcut.
Yeah. So we had to
stupid.
get our leg over quick and get back down.
Oh, you did, definitely. Yeah.
And get back down and walk round.
I've been doing this nearly 40 years.
Wow.
About 38 years.
I've seen the state of it, yeah.
So we were there and then we were watching the gig at the arena and then all of a sudden I said to you, oh, it's raining in.
Yeah.
And it wasn't raining in. It was something very nasty.
Yeah. What?
Well, we were down below and it's somebody up above. Couldn't be bothered going to the toilet.
Go to the toilet.
Oh, we had to get out of the way quick, didn't we?
Yeah.
Tell us a bit more about the differences between the two of you.
He's very outspoken. He's very narcissistic. It's all about Shaun. And I think people thought I was going to be much more like that at school.
Yeah.
You know, but they soon discovered I was the quiet one.
Yeah.
I had my own mates, he had his mates, and we didn't really mix.
I asked Gaz Whelan, the drummer with the Mondays, what he thought about how different the brothers were.
No, they are different, but they're also very similar. It's like me and Paul are very, very different, but really similar. I mean, you know, literally, I know that this sounds really cheesy and cliche, but we could almost read each other's minds. We'd finish each other's sentences, and I'd know what he was thinking. He'd know what I was thinking. We'd say things to each other and burst out laughing. So, and I know this sounds really cliche, and it sounds, you know, because he's gone now and all that, but he was like a brother to me. He was like I didn't have an older brother. I had no older sister, so he was like an older brother to me. He really was. To talk more about it, cause it's been quite cathartic, that. I feel, just got a shiver down my spine there. He's fucking here, isn't he?
Yeah, of course he is.
Just got all really cold shivers. Oh, that's fucking weird.
Really?
Oh, it's boiling in here.
Okay.
Honestly, that is fucking weird. Oh, it's not going either. Oh, that's not going. Oh, that's very strange. Oh, fucking hell, my heart's going now. Oh, that's very weird. You know, you get cold shivers, they last for like 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Oh, that's very weird that my heart's going now. That's fucking weird, that. That was very weird. Fucking hell, right, I'm going to go, I need a pint.
Shaun asked for drums. Oh my God. No way.
We met on that trip in Iceland when I was working for MTV, and I was sent to do a piece on you, on the band doing a gig in Iceland.
That's right.
And that's where we very first met.
And you was the first one to put the Mondays on MTV.
I think so.
Yeah.
Crash Bang Wallet.
Well, it was just before you were kind of famous in Europe, wasn't it? It was when you'd released the Hallelujah EP.
I think all the road knew about it.
And I remember we filmed the gig, and we made a live video of the gig to the Hallelujah EP, because I don't think there'd been a video done at that point.
No, I don't think so, no.
But I know that we put that out.
We had weefers, twitters, or whatever you call them, twerpers.
I was like, we need this shot. We need to establish you arriving in Iceland. But the really embarrassing thing was I didn't know who was in the band and who was in the crew, and I knew that if I got on the bus and said, "Can we have the band?" And let the band know, let the crew know that I didn't know who was in the band and who wasn't, I'd have had half the crew instead of the band, pretending to be in the band. And then we filmed the gig, and do you remember Bez threw up on the cameraman's shoes? I think he'd had like a few too many E's or something.
Yeah.
And he literally threw up while the cameraman was on stage filming the drummer, filming Gaz.
I had
He's
no
like,
idea.
Bez threw up on my shoes.
Yeah, that was quite a bad trip, to say the least, you know what I mean? And the funny thing was, they had a warehouse party full of, in a warehouse full of stock, and obviously had loads of mancs in there, like, oh, fucking hell, I'll have these, oh yeah, you know what I mean? And yeah, it was like a miniature crime spree.
And that's when I went into this Blue Lagoon, covered myself with this white sand.
Mud, wasn't it?
White mud, yeah. And when I came out, I felt all cleansed, and I never touched a joint again.
Yeah, but you touched a few other things.
Yeah, I touched a hell of a lot more, but I never smoked weed after that.
I never knew that. I never knew that.
I think I tried leaving home when I was 12 because they wouldn't let me have a salamander.
What's one of those?
A lizard. I wanted a lizard, and they said no, so I left home.
Paul decided he wanted a tropical lizard, and Derek said, no way, if you think we're keeping that lamp on and heating the thing up all the time, and what'll happen, your mother will end up looking after it, or I will, you are not having a tropical lizard. Right, I'm leaving home. So he gathered his washing off the maiden, the wet washing that was drying, got a little backpack, and Shaun came in and he said, I've just seen Paul with a suitcase on his back. Where's he going, peddling like that? Oh, he's left home. He's gone to Nana's because he can't have a tropical lizard. Oh, anyway, it got to tea time and he came sneaking in. And I said, what are you doing here? He said, oh, I thought I might as well come home. He said, because they're only having chips and eggs, so I've come home for my chicken dinner.
Paul and Shaun's volatile relationship has been well documented through the years.
You never knew which Shaun you was going to get. He can be nasty, or he can be really cool.
I mean, when you think what they were like when they were younger.
Yeah.
And you never knew which one was going to come out.
What do you think decides whether it's the nasty one or the nice one?
I've no idea. I can't work his brain out.
No.
They were lovely, weren't they? And then all hell broke out, didn't it, when they were older?
Yeah.
Can't
Do you
work
feel
them
he's
out.
gone more extreme as he's got older?
Yeah. Yeah.
More extreme in what?
In his lies. More extreme in his stories, and it's difficult because I don't really hang out with him anymore. I don't. I only see him at shows.
Does that make you upset?
No.
Are you sure? I mean, he's your only brother, he's your only sibling, and you were very close when you were growing up. It must hurt you that you don't have a relationship with him now.
I just don't. It helps because I don't like the person he became.
Right.
I don't like who he is.
Do you hope that one day you'll reconcile and be friends again?
Yeah, I'm sure it'll happen one day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you think he would feel if he got a call one day saying that you were dead?
I have no idea.
Come on, go there.
I have no idea what he'd think. I really don't know.
Okay, reverse that. How would you feel if you got a call?
I'd be sad, obviously. Be sad.
Right.
And that's about it.
For what, though? What would you be sad for?
That my brother was dead.
Right, because what would that mean?
There wouldn't be a chance to make up.
Right.
There we go.
So you do want to make up with him then?
I'm in no rush. I'm sure it'll happen. But if he died, it would be upsetting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you never thought of, like, reaching out and trying to...
I've reached out to him a few times.
And?
His answer was, I don't want to know.
What did you say?
I can't remember.
Come on, what did you say?
I can't
yeah,
remember.
You can.
I can't. It's happened like 3 times and I'll never do it again.
I mean, you better kind of fill people in because people see you playing on the stage with him, and I'm sure they would assume that you and the rest of the band have some kind of relationship with him. Explain how that works.
Well, he doesn't travel with the band. He travels separate, which is great. It works out fine for all of us. He travels separate. Me, Gaz, Mark Day, Dan on keyboards and Rowetta, we all travel together. And we just see Shaun 5 minutes before we go on stage.
And what about sound checks?
He's not done sound checks for 20 years.
Really? Mm-hmm. And what about after the shows? What happens then?
Well, usually we end the set with Rope for Luck, which kind of turns into a jam for 5 minutes. And he's off stage and out the door and in his car and gone while we're still playing.
Every single show?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you say...
He thinks he's James Brown.
Do you say hello to him if you pass him, like, before the show? Like,
sometimes I'll nod. Sometimes he'll nod. We don't really do eye contact.
Wow.
But once we're on stage, all that's forgotten. And the most important thing is doing the show. He's slagged us all off.
Yeah.
For many years. Still doing it.
Yeah. Why won't he write an album with you? Oh, will he write an album with you?
Maybe that'll happen one day.
But why do you think it's not? I mean, you're constantly asked to do a new album.
Yeah, we're not even on the same book, never mind the same page. No. Maybe if we do a bit of healing between our relationship, then maybe an album might come out of it.
Right.
But up until then, it's just impossible to work with him.
Why is that?
Because he actually doesn't want me and Gaz involved in the music. He wants to do it all himself.
But he doesn't play any instruments.
I know. That's Shaun for you.
Right.
That's his latest.
Really?
Yeah. Okay, let's
move on.
Break on that one. I'm getting too hot again.
All right.
Have we done enough?
No, not quite.
Okay. Do a bit more. Let me have a cig and a piss. That got heavy. You got stuff out of it that no one got out of it.
So your first gig was the Ramones. Are you sure it wasn't like something really naff and you're just too embarrassed to say?
I did see the Rowettes, but they was only opening a big supermarket in Warden. The Rowettes opened it, and Huey Green opened it as well.
Oh,
he cut the ribbon, but the Rowettes was there miming to one of their hits. So we formed the band, went through a few different
Who's
names. Me and Shaun.
Just you and Shaun? You were the two original members?
Two original members, yeah.
Paul and Shaun asked Gaz Whelan to be the drummer, but his mum Sandra explains that this almost never happened.
I was always on top of trees and I was swinging off to it like a bloody monkey, really. He was just and he broke the but it was mad. It was shattered his arm and his shoulder, and they were going to amputate at one time. It was that bad, really.
The very first time I met him was in the side street up from where I lived, and he was just sat on the curb really quiet, and we were all playing football. He didn't. I remember him. I just remember him. I remember it was him, and he didn't say anything. He was playing it very cool, like I was very quiet.
And we came out of Salford Road, and we were at the bus stop waiting for a bus to go back to Wardley, and there was this woman in the queue. And she said, "Oh, have you been to the hospital?" I said, "Oh, yeah." She said, "Oh, it looks as if he's had a bad day." So I was telling her all about it anyhow. And she said to me, "He'll be all right, him, you know," she said. I said, "Well, he wants to be a footballer." I said, "But I don't know now, you know, he's lost a lot of confidence." And she went, "He won't be a footballer." I thought, fancy telling me that, and him, well, he's stuck there. And he was only 11, as I say. And she said to me, "I'm going to tell you what, now he's going to be in a band and they're going to be very popular." I said, "Him in a band?" I said, he couldn't move his arm. She went, "I'm telling you." And I always remember that. That was a woman at a bus stop, and I've never forgot that.
And we just kind of wandered over to each other and started talking, and it was kind of love at first sight. It sounds very strange, but it was. And we just clicked. I felt at home straight away with the two brothers. It was like I'd found two people who were like me, even though they were very different than me. They weren't into football. They didn't hang around with a big group of people, but they seemed very similar. And all of a sudden in that room, I felt like I'd found my two friends. But it became very apparent within a couple of hours that there was one friend who was going to be my real friend.
And they liked him and he liked them, and that was it. Yeah.
And by the second rehearsal, we were best mates. By the first time I brought my drums down and played nothing to do with bass and drums, we were just best friends. I thought it's really weird that maybe like my mum and Linda, we just clicked.
And his mum let him have a week off school.
Really? Did she?
To learn the drum patterns that we was doing. So he had a week off school. He'd got the job anyway because he came dressed cool.
With cool hair.
Yeah, cool hair.
Did he have his long hair at that point?
He was getting long, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think he had a side parting flick.
Yeah.
But he came to meet us and he had the right pants on, the right jumper, the right shirt, the right shoes, and it was like, okay, he's in.
Well, I turned up in a Queen t-shirt. Obviously, I was still in the prog rock era. I was still trying to learn guitar. As a guitarist, you learn guitar music. And they were dressed in Perry Boys and all sorts. I thought, oh, look at this is different. And then I've met them totally from different music ends of spectrums because I was listening to, I had a Queen t-shirt. I'd just been to see them. Loved Brian May's guitar work, and I was into all the, other bands, Zappa, Zeppelin, I was into all that. And they were totally from a different other end of the spectrum of music, which they introduced me to. I turned up with my brand new guitar case and brand new guitar that I just bought. I'm so proud of. So, yeah, and then I think Matt was there as well, actually. And he had his guitar in a placky bag or something, which was like...
Can you play guitar? Yeah, I can play guitar. I was like, right, you're in the band.
Okay.
It was as simple as that.
Reading music, to be honest, when we were learning, we'd never wrote a record or done anything. It's boring. He wants to look at crotchets and quavers on the stave. Sat there like Mozart, you know what I mean? Sat that. I'd rather do a load of drugs and do music than do that. That's too curriculum.
And what about Paul Davis?
Paul Davis came along because he was at school with Gaz.
Oh, okay.
And it was like, what? Gaz was like, I want to bring my mate to rehearsals. I was like, well, bring him then.
Gaz invited me down, Gary Whelan, and we went to see them, and I was fascinated with them. I thought Paul was really cool with the bass sound. I've never heard a bass close up, with a live band, because I was a kid at school, and I was just madly influenced. We became friends,
PD. I want to be in the band.
Oh, PD was Gary's best friend at school. Oh, PD.
He knocked on our door one night.
Yeah.
11 o'clock it was. Can I be in the band? So he wanted to be the singer, but we've got a singer.
Yeah.
PD said, well, I want to be the drummer. He said, you can't get the drummer.
I'll play the guitar and the bass. No, we've already got them.
Oh, God.
So that's when we said, well, what about keyboards?
Yeah.
You can be the keyboard player.
You haven't got a keyboard player, and PD was like, no, that's for weirdos.
Mark has a fond memory of how PD once helped get them some press.
Some bright sparks. I did have some mushroom juice before a gig, right? So the next thing, right, all PD has to do is press the button on his keyboard to activate the song, because it's all linked up. Could he do it? No, he's pissing about. Next thing, I got fucking frustrated, walked up, and I don't know what happened, but my fist left my shoulder and hit him right in the mouth. He fell backwards, hit the monitor behind him and kicked the keyboard, and the song started. I thought, oh, brilliant, right. Got ready to play. Next thing, he's frothing at mouth, comes over, smacked me in the head. Next thing, the crowd are going ape shit. They had to put all the smoke on to hide it. And that's how we made it in the morning, because all the Daily Star, the Sun, it was all a local band from Manchester fight on stage. Brilliant. We made the press. We got what we wanted. That was it. That's how you do it.
For me personally, it was a way out of normality.
Okay, but you could have chosen, you said you wanted to travel, you could have been a tour rep, you could have got a sales job that involved going abroad. Like, why music?
Because music's powerful. It's a powerful thing for a lot of people.
Explain more about that.
Well, it changes you. It can change your feelings within seconds.
Right. Do you feel like you had a special talent that you found an outlet for, or do you feel like you just got lucky and were able to just do something that was fun?
I don't think it was. Not at the time you didn't think it was a special talent. You was just doing what you was doing. I remember third year at school, the English teacher, I always remember it saying, everybody's got a talent. You might not have discovered it yet. And I was thinking, I ain't got a talent. I'm not talented at much, really. We were still avant-garde when we did our first gig with Gaz.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where was the gig?
The gig was at Wardley Community Centre.
Right. And who came to watch you?
Oh, it was full.
What, friends or just random people?
Just people from around the area. I think we put one poster up in the newsagents.
Really?
Saying there was going to be a gig at Wardley Community
Did they pay
Centre.
to see you?
Yeah.
Wow, I wonder if we could ever find anyone who was there. Do you know anyone?
Yeah, of course I do. All Gaz's mates.
It was our youth club, so every Friday we had a youth club disco and all that, bottles of cider outside and all that, as you do growing up. So it was like pretty much all my mates. It was all a load of 13, 14-year-old drunk on cider kids, lads, all pretty much our school, because it was our youth. It was, instead of a disco, we had this gig.
We need to get somebody to talk about
Get
that.
Kingo on the phone.
Kingo, who's he?
He's the hairdresser.
Okay.
He's got his own shop called Kingo's in Swinton.
You hear me now?
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. You hear me now?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
So you're Kingo?
Yes, I am, yeah. Yeah.
It's good to meet you. It was really weird because I've not spoken to Gary since the funeral, really. And I sent him a text. I was like, do you have any idea where we could get hold of a guy called Kingo? And he's like, yeah, I'm seeing him tomorrow. I've got an appointment with him. It was just like really weird. The time was just really weird. Anyway, what was the gig like?
There wasn't loads there, but there was enough to fill that place. Yeah. Derek Ryder was obviously the roadie then. He did Joy Division covers. I remember these days, and he did a Depeche Mode cover.
It was a Thursday night, and we did 3 Joy Division songs, 1 Depeche Mode song, and 2 of our own. One song called Saigon. We was obsessed by Vietnam, and this was this TV show on late at night. And we did a song about Vietnam, which we really liked, but Shaun hated it. His lyrics were brilliant, but he hated it, so we never did it again. So we did that. PD joined afterwards because we went outside and he wouldn't let anybody near us to talk to us. My band. It's not, I don't remember it, but everyone was saying that everybody was going, it's my band, keep away, keep away. I don't remember that, but that's what everyone else says happened. So someone said, you've got to get him in the band. Apparently, someone went in Kingo's Barbers this week, he said, doing podcasts, they're calling me from LA now. He said, I'm going to have to get some merch together. It's great, isn't it?
You played intuitively, didn't you? You never learned music theory. No. Tell us about that.
I had one bass guitar lesson, and unfortunately, it was the same time as Top of the Pops, the same day and same time as Top of the Pops. So I'm having this bass guitar lesson in the living room at home, all the time thinking, I'm missing Top of the Pops here. So after that one lesson, I had no more.
How do you learn intuitively how to play something?
Well, you find a record that you like.
Yeah.
And one good trick is not to slow it down, not to slow the record down, to find out what the bass line is. You speed it up.
Oh, how do you do that?
Just by putting it onto
78.
70, onto 78, yeah.
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 How does that help?
Well, it pops out more.
Really?
Yeah. It pops out of the song more. The bass.
I've never heard of that before.
I used to speed them up.
Yeah. And then you hear it, and then you
hear
replicate
it, and then
it.
you replicate it.
How do you find the note?
Just by going up and down the fretboard until it sounds right.
Wow. What's your favourite bass line that you've ever written?
I think it would have to be Kinky Afro.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Why?
Because it's so simple. It's just two notes. But it's the feel of it.
Yeah.
It's the feel and the groove of it.
When you're playing the bass, how much is it hitting the right notes and how much is it injecting that feeling into how you're doing it?
Oh, you've got to hit the right notes, otherwise it's going to sound terrible. But the feel is so important.
Yeah, that's...
The feeling of it.
Yeah. And how would you describe your feel?
A groove feel.
It's kind of Nick from Funkadelic, kind of.
Funkadelic grooves and Motown grooves. Mark's next door neighbour was a caretaker at the local school, junior school, and he used to give us the keys on Wednesdays.
My mum and dad knew the caretaker next door. They agreed as well. I thought, we had to pay a £5 for the electricity. Well, could I get £1 off each of them? It's only on 30 quid a week. £5 was a lot of money in them days.
We got a letter first saying, give us a call on this number.
Right.
So none of us would make the phone call. We was all too scared. So my dad had to do it. And then he arranged for them to come up and see us in this school. That's when the bricks came through the windows.
So Paul used to send these cassettes off to all the record companies. That was Paul, did all that and info. And then some record label got back in touch. London Records it was, ironically. I was at the publishing. No, it was London because we went with the publishing in the end, London. And they said they're going to come up. And one of the head of A&R, I can't remember his name, Derek knew him because he'd signed, I think Paul had sent it to him because he'd signed a few bands from Manchester. So they arranged to come up. And it was an old school. It was like an old church. It had a big bay window. So we'd set up playing. And they turned up and they were from down south and they were always a bit nervous coming up north anyway. And it was in an area that was okay. It wasn't in a bad area or anything. But they packed us to the cars okay outside. We're like, yeah, fine. And they came in and literally, halfway through the first song, a brick came through the gable end window. And I think it was an old girlfriend of mine, I'm not sure. Because she used to hang around there, we'd fallen out. And they all dived on the floor like we were under attack. And we said it's fine, we got up and and they went and checked the cars and they came back and they said, does that normally happen? And Derek said, yeah, but they must be getting good. So they said, why? He said, because it was only half a brick this time.
So they came to see you and they said, yeah, it sounds good, but you don't have an image.
You don't have an image and it's not quite what we're looking for.
And they said to us, we'll sign you if you get an image. And we was like, well, this is how we dress. They said, no, you've got to have an image. You know, like Culture Club. We always went, oh, fuck off. And then they got in touch about 2 weeks later and said they'd sign us on a deal if we changed our image and got a stylist. And we all just categorically just said no chance, you know. The clothes are important as the music for us then.
So, Gaz, do you ever feel his presence around you?
Too much, yeah, all the time. I always think, like, now I'm doing this solo work, whenever I'm doing stuff, I'm always thinking he's judging me. I think, well, oh, they can't do that. Boss would call that cheesy, or Paul would do that. I remember... like, when he had his house in Crumsall, and there was these two old... He was in the post office, these three really old Jewish women with these big glasses. And he said, fucking hell, he's from DMC. And things like that. And he was the funniest person I've ever met in my life.
And I joined this gym across the road from where I worked. And I was in there one day and I thought, I recognise him from somewhere. And I kept looking at him and I couldn't get it. And I went back the next day and he was in there again, this guy. And it clicked. It was Peter Hook from New Order. Joy Division, yeah. Yeah. So I thought, oh, maybe I could give him a demo. But I wasn't into, like, going up to him at the gym.
Why?
Just not my thing. So I sneaked into the office of the Corinthian where all the membership cards were and flicked through until I got to H for Hook. Found Peter Hook's registration card and got his address.
Oh, wow.
Got his address and then drove up to his house.
I can remember the day, actually. He put the tape through the door. So I opened the door and there was a postman there. And he looks a bit shocked. And I said, oh, have you put through this through the door? You know, because it was just the cassette. No explanation or anything. Literally just
no letter with it or anything? Just not in an envelope?
No, just the cassette.
And I said, can you do me a favour? And he said, if you want money, I've got none. Typical Icky. Typical Peter Hook. If you want money, I've got none. It's like, no, I don't want any money. I've got a demo. We have a listen to it.
And I was like, yeah, of course. Why not? It wasn't the first time that it had happened to me. He went off. I can't even remember it. I wouldn't even say sheepishly, to be honest.
And he liked it, but nothing ever happened until we got Phil Saxe involved.
It was Paul and Paul Davis, and they came to my stall in the Arndale Centre in Manchester when I was selling flares and all the rest of it. And they were like one of the first groups of lads that had come there.
And at the time when we first met Phil, we'd all decided that we was going to bring flares back. And we went to his stall and he'd just bought thousands and thousands of pairs of flares, Levi flares and Dickies flares from America, and he was paying like 50 pence a pair from the warehouses, buying up all these flares and selling them at £20 a pair. So he was buying them all off him, and that's how we met Phil, who later became our first proper manager.
Shaun tells the story that they used to come to the stall and nick stuff, and I think that's rubbish, because I used to have a big iron bar, and if anybody put their hand through to pinch something, I'd smack it.
And whose idea was it to ask him to manage you?
Mine.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What did you say to him?
Do you want to manage us?
Oh, that was it?
Yeah. We need a proper manager. My dad's working. He's doing the working men's clubs at night. He's got his post office round. We need someone to work on this. And then it was time for the Battle of the Bands competition at the Hacienda.
So in those days, it was you, Shaun, Mark, Gaz and PD. Just the five of you.
Yeah. Which was... went on for a few weeks. There was all these bands that entered and it got whittled down to the last four, and we was in the last four, but we couldn't do the show because Mark Day had a nosebleed and got rushed to hospital. Proper spinal tap. So we missed out, but we won the competition anyway.
How?
Because the winner of the competition got to put out a record on Factory Records.
Right.
And it was already decided that we was the winners.
Oh, wow. What was it like going into the studio for the first time when you recorded the first single? You were with Mike Pickering?
Quick, good, and when you hear it, we drive home with a cassette in the car. You know how it's going and everything. And you just be smirking at 6 a.m. driving home in the car after the studio.
The Enemy started writing about you. Was that the first time they'd ever mentioned you?
Yeah, it would have been.
I became like I guess what you call like a champion of them, you know. So I was in a kind of position where if there was a band I really liked, I could push them. So I remember asking if I could review the album, and I managed to get pretty good amount of space, a third of a page or something. And I kind of waxed lyrical about the album, but I'd still never had a conversation with them.
Do you remember how you felt when you first saw that the Enemy was writing about you?
I remember thinking, okay, things are going to change.
I kind of had the feeling from seeing them wandering around and playing that they weren't, again, going to be like the other bands who were going to be talking about vegetarianism or, you know, Thatcher. And I arrived and there were about 5 or 6 people in the room. But it turned out, I think, only 2 or maximum 3 of the lads in the room were actually in Happy Mondays. They couldn't have been less bothered about helping me write something interesting about the band. And I gave up, to be honest. I gave up. And I came away with nothing worth talking about. And so what I did was I went into town. The manager, Phil Saxe, had a stall in Arndale Market. So I went to Phil and I said, look, I've done my best with your lads, but there's nothing. And Phil, you know, gift of the gab. So he was like saying stuff like, they're the new Velvet Underground, you know, which is like exactly, that's what you want, because then you write that in the NME and then, you know, the headline piece, the new Velvet Underground, and that'll help sell records. So he was he knew the game, but they were so not interested in the game.
Tony was mesmerised by Bez and Shaun. I don't remember him rushing back from having interviewed Anthony Burgess for Granada, so that he could go and have a chat with Bez. And I'm saying, what? The bloke who wrote Clockwork Orange, and you're running to come back and have a chat with Bez? I don't get it. But Tony did. He rushed back.
We got some good reviews, and then it was time for an album.
Squirrel and G.
Squirrel and G-Man, 24-hour party people, plastic face, can't smile, white out, produced by John Cale of the Velvet Underground.
So how on earth did that make you feel that you were being paired up with John Cale?
Oh, it was ace. I couldn't stop smiling.
Where did that decision come from? It was a genius pairing, wasn't it?
Yeah. There was a music festival in Manchester called the Festival of the 10th Summer. They got John Cale over from America, and John Cale did like an hour-long set.
Yeah.
And that came about through him doing that show.
Right. Whose idea was it to bring him in as the producer?
Possibly Phil Saxe.
And I thought, if I had my complete choice, I'd have John Cale. Because, 1, he was my hero. 2, he had produced the first Jonathan Richman album, although there were actually demos produced by him. You know, Nico. He had done other people's albums, the first album, and they'd gone off and become famous. And Bernard said, well, if you say to Tony, why don't you get John Cale? He'll ignore you. Leave it with me. About the following week, Tony says to me, I've got a great idea for producing the Monday. I said, who? He said, John Cale. I said, oh, that's great. You know, he always thought he came up with, you know, he came up by itself, but he didn't.
Yeah.
And what did you say?
Of course, it's John Cale from the Velvet Underground. Damn right, it's good.
So, what was he like? I know you've told me some stories about him in the past.
Yeah, he was clean at the time. He cleaned himself up from his heroin addiction and all his drinking and all his drug taking. So he was clean and sober at the time. All he wanted to do was play squash.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he kept asking the band, does anyone play squash? Does I need a squash partner? Does anyone play squash? We was just too busy getting drunk and taking drugs and being in a band. He watched the new TV news every night at 6 o'clock. We'd have to break while he watched the news.
Oh.
And he ate a lot of extra strong mints.
Well, he was very professional, proper. He didn't understand us at all. Satsumas, we used to sit there with Satsumas, and did Paul tell you that? Satsumas, sit there with his oranges, peeling them, feet up, and we stayed in Swiss Cottage. Oh, that was a laugh and a half. Yeah, that's when I got introduced to Class A's, Never Again. Jesus.
Oh dear. What happened?
I'm not telling you. I thought, I can't work on this shit. I'll stick with what I know. You know.
We played the song and he'd say, yeah, it's good, play it faster. So we'd play it a bit faster and he'd record that. He said, yeah, you're getting there, but it needs to be even faster. So all our songs ended up being twice as fast as they was written.
Were you getting paid at this point for the shows?
Yeah, we was covering our cost of the van,
Yeah.
cost of a couple of crates of beer.
Who would drive the van?
My dad.
Yeah?
He was driver, sound engineer, manager, tour manager, roadie, guitar tech, bass. So he did everything.
Well, both Derek and Linda, so don't forget Linda as well, because she used to make the corned beef and tomato butties for us all when we all went out on the road. And without Horseman, there would have been no Happy Mondays. He was the true driving force behind it all, you know what I mean? And a lot of the time, in the early days, it costed him, it was coming out of his own wallet.
How did you feel having your dad go alongside you the whole time?
Great, I was cool about it.
Was Shaun?
I'm not sure. I think he might have been a bit embarrassed.
Oh, that's a shame. I remember when I met you in Iceland in 1990, your dad was very much a part of the scene.
Oh, yeah.
And your dad would stand in for Shaun in the sound checks,
Yeah.
singing, and
Yeah.
everybody loved your dad.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, he can sing better than Shaun.
Yeah.
He can sound like Shaun when he wants to. He did sound like Shaun.
Yeah.
But it's just slightly better.
When Bez first started being part of the band, when did that happen?
The first time at the Hacienda. Well, we'd started hanging out with Bez. Everyone kept saying we should meet this kid called Bez, who'd just come back from Morocco living in a cave.
My very first meeting of Paul and Shaun is when they was in the car, what we used to call the Egg, the old yellow Escort, Mark II Escort. Paul and Shaun pulled in the Egg, and I seen two little heads about that big peeping up over the dashboard. And that was like my first meeting of him. And they looked so cool. The pair of them, like, they're proper cool as fuck, you know what I mean?
Everyone said, you and Shaun will get on with him really well.
The last thing on my mind was being part of the Happy Mondays, you know what I mean? Because I couldn't play anything, I couldn't do anything. I'm not like a musician, you know what I mean?
We eventually met him and got on really well with him.
And New Order was playing for the Tube, and the Mondays were supporting. And that's the actual night that I actually joined the band. I just bought loads of black microdots and white microdots. So anyway, we all done this acid. And
by the time it was showtime at the Hacienda, our kid was off his nut and said to Bez, you're going to have to get up there with me.
Because I'm right off my finger, he needed moral support. And I said, fuck off, I'm not getting on stage, are you fucking mad? And after a bit of toing and throwing, and I said, I had to jump on stage, obviously, you know what I mean? And on the way up there, I seen a pair of maracas, which I grabbed, and I got on there, and I was like, off my head on this acid. I was giving it rock all. And when I came off, I had a hole the size of a 50p piece in my hand. And I went home laughing that night, but the funny thing is, next day, somebody said to Shaun and Paul, when they was out of the egg, this girl come up and said to him, well, that was really nice of you last night, letting that kid with special needs on stage with you.
You're not supposed to come from where we come from and be in a band. You're supposed to do that thing we was talking about before, get a job, get a mortgage, get a girlfriend, get married, have kids.
Can you remember the first time you didn't feel like a phony?
No, it was probably after I had a load of therapy.
Even during the height of the success with Pills and Thrills, you still felt like an imposter?
Yeah. It took me years to learn the names of the strings on the bass. I know them now, G, D, A and E. I used to call the fat string, the one next to the fat string, the thin string, and the one next to the thin string.
Wow.
I didn't know it was G, D, A and E.
But you obviously didn't need to know that.
No, I didn't.
Do you not think some of the most gifted musicians are ones that play intuitively like that?
Yeah, Paul McCartney can't read music.
Really? Well, did you know that at the time?
No.
I bet you wish you did, didn't you?
Yeah, that would have helped tremendously.
Could you even argue that it could actually destroy some of the magic if you do start going out and having lessons and being told how to do it?
Definitely, yeah, because there's rules. Because of the rules in music, I was playing bass lines where, I mean, Mark Day could read a little bit of music and I'd do bass lines and he said, you can't do that note after that note because it doesn't work like, in music it doesn't work. And I was like, well, does it sound good? And it sounded good. And I said, well, fuck it, you can do it.
Tell me about the album title.
Everyone wanted to call it something different.
Yeah.
So we just put all the titles together.
Oh, okay.
I wanted it to be called Whiteout, which is at the end of the title in brackets. Shaun wanted 24-hour party people.
Right.
Because we didn't have the song by then.
Okay.
We wrote the song after the album.
Okay.
PD wanted Plastic Face Can't Smile. So we just put them all together.
Who was Squirrel and G-Man?
Squirrel and G-Man was PD's parents.
Oh, really?
Yeah. G-Man because his dad was a policeman.
Right.
As in government man.
Right.
And Squirrel because his mum, when she ate, she looked like a squirrel. And I think it's one of the longest album titles ever.
And how did Factory feel about that?
Loved it.
Really?
Yeah, we were spoiled by Factory. They'd let us do anything we wanted.
But you wouldn't have been the magic that you were without that freedom.
No, definitely not. They let us grow up in public.
Knowing Tony, I bet he was kind of the lead conspirator. I bet he was, pulling the strings as if to say, like, a bit more of this, guys, a bit more of that, But they wouldn't have been the band with the legacy that they have without the infrastructure around them. Right manager, right label, right lead singer, right bass player. Every piece of the pie was perfect, I think.
But even like being able to call an album that was incredible. Amazing.
Yeah, it's not.
If you'd been signed to Sony, they wouldn't have allowed you to do that.
Not at all. They wouldn't have got it. But Factory was just total artistic freedom.
My favourite of all the gigs we ever did, of course, is the one at King George's Hall in Blackburn. The playing on stage, someone threw a pint pot, right? You know, one of those with the handle on the side, with dimples, and it hit PD on the head when he was playing the keyboard. And PD just walked off stage and said, I'm not fucking going out there because someone's hit me with a pint pot. And I made him go back on and carry on playing, right? And then someone jumped up on stage and grabbed the mic off Shaun and did Sieg Heil, and did the Hitler salute. And Bez went and smashed his teeth out with maracas.
You, Bez and Shaun all shared a flat.
All shared a one-bedroom flat.
It was great in them days. It was fantastic because, we were young, We had fucking dreams. We was having great times, great parties, really enjoying ourselves.
And what was that like? Oh my goodness, I can't imagine.
Oh, well, it got to the point where nobody would clean up.
The flat was, when we left there, it was basically condemned, you know what I mean? You should have seen the state of the place.
Nobody would wash dishes.
There's fungi growing where fungi's never been seen growing before.
But every couple of months, we'd run a bath.
One day we decided to do the pots, and we had to fill the bath up with Dettol, to clean the pots in.
And put all the dishes in a bath.
And the side mark, because the three of us had to get in the bath.
And that, because there wasn't enough room in the kitchen.
And the fucking towels used to stink.
Oh, no.
So we'd have to grab all the cups, the glasses. The glasses was full of cigarette ends and...
There used to be a thick, trusty side mark round the bath because no one ever used to clean the bath.
And mouldy food.
You weren't going to impress any young bird anyway coming in.
Alan Erasmus, who, if anyone knows anything about Factory, they'll have heard of Tony Wilson, Rob Gretton, but maybe not Alan. Alan was the third partner, and he was the quiet one, but always came up with good ideas.
Right.
He never did interviews, he never went out and put himself around town like Tony did, and he was the quiet one. It was Alan's idea to get Martin involved.
And what was Martin's background at the time?
Martin had done Joy Division. He was also involved in a record label called Rabid Records, which had Jilted John, John Cooper Clarke. Rabid was quite a decent sized record label for an indie. And he was partners in that.
Martin Hannett was a bass player, so we wanted me and Paul to go up first to the studio. We booked in a studio called the Slaughterhouse in Driffield near Scarborough, North Yorkshire. So we had to pick him up. Factory hired a car, and they said the only request from Martin Hannett was no Ford or no red car, because he hated red Fords. So of course me and Paul requested a red Ford and got one. We pulled up at his house in Charlton. Martin was outside smoking, and he just went, "Yeah, pair of bastards. We're going to get on fine," and we did.
He was the one.
That was another great album. Again, working with Martin. It was up in Driffield.
Crazy.
It was the height of the ecstasy explosion.
Madness.
So the whole band was on really good vibes then, you know what I mean? Everyone was just eating ease, you know what I mean?
Fucking hell, yeah.
Fucking the addictions hadn't even entered into the equation then.
And he was a character, wasn't he? Tell us about Martin Hannett.
Martin was... he was pretty quiet, you know. By the time we worked with him, he was kind of over his whole heroin addiction, but heavily into alcohol.
Right.
And so that played a big part in it.
We got to Driffield and the pubs were open. This was before the times when pubs were open all day. And the pubs were open all day. So we get to the studio and the guy, we said, why? And he said, "Do you want to have a look around the new studio?" And we were like, "No, why? The pub's open all day." And he said, "It's market day, they're open all day." We went, "All day?" He went, "Yeah." We went, "We'll go to the pub then." He said, "Would you want to tour around the studio and see what equipment we've got?" And we went, "No." So we get to the pub and Martin said, "I've not drunk alcohol for 5 years, 4 or 5 years, can't remember at the time what it was." He said, I've not drank, I'll just have a Coca-Cola." Okay. I remember Paul saying, "They've got a Stella on draft." So we ordered 2 pints of Stella and Martin Hannett went, "Go on then, I'll have a Stella." So we had one. This was like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Still there at 12:30 at night.
The studio came with accommodation, a little end terraced house where we all stayed.
They put me in the drum booth, right? That was where we were sleeping, in the fucking drum booth. No air, nothing. It might have been soundproof, but it was fucking hot. You couldn't breathe. Parties all the time, don't know.
And what was that like?
National Lampoon's. After that got released, that was the start of us doing or having remixes done of some of our songs.
Whose idea was that?
I think us collectively, because the club culture had started to take off, especially in Ibiza with Balearic beats, and the DJs, the English DJs coming back from Ibiza and putting club nights on in London.
I was DJing in a nightclub called The Future, so I would play The Cure next to Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five next to Bob Marley. The club was based around when I went to Ibiza and experienced the Balearic sound that it became to be known, which is basically all kinds of great music together. So I would play at this club, hence why it's called Rope for Luck is the title, but it's called The Future Mix. And I sampled Prince at the end from the movie Batman, which in those days you could get away with samples. I mean, there's an NWA sample in there. There's a lot going on in that track, but it worked really, really well. And it blew up. And as I say, the media then were going, oh, you indie dance. Okay, it's indie dance. And then our relationship started to grow.
That was all like acid and ecstasy and...
Ecstasy, Balearic beat and chill out grooves.
And that was the beginning of my relationship with the Mondays. And out of that became a record that people started to play. And the word indie dance came about, because you could finally dance to indie music.
Tell me about when you first discovered ecstasy. When was that?
Ooh, probably about 87.
Okay, what happened?
Friends of ours came back from Amsterdam with quite a few thousand of them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and was one of the first, there was, friends of ours was one of the first groups of people to start selling them to friends, and it kind of grew from there.
Right. Do you remember your first one?
First one, yeah, it was amazing. I never had anything like it.
What did it make you feel?
Euphoric.
Yeah.
Euphoric, and everything sounded better. All the music sounded better.
So do you think the Mondays' music would have been very different had it not been for ecstasy and psychedelics?
I don't know where it would have gone, but it would have gone somewhere.
Yeah.
But it's just happenstance that drug came along at the same time as we was getting into remixes.
Because at that time you were really a true indie band. Your music would be defined as being indie, and then all of a sudden these dance grooves started appearing.
Indie dance.
Yeah.
A new genre.
Did you realise at that point that you were being catapulted into a slightly different direction musically?
Yeah, I knew straight away. As soon as I heard that remix, it was like, okay, I know where I'm going now.
Right.
Yeah.
That must have felt pretty good.
Yeah, it was really good.
Do you remember the first time you were ever in a club and you heard it being played and saw people dancing to it?
I remember the first ever record, the delightful one, on a Tuesday night in the Hacienda. I remember that being played and thinking, wow, I've never heard it so loud.
Did people dance?
Yeah, people was dancing.
Yeah.
That was a nice moment.
Yeah, must be a pretty good feeling when that happens.
Really good.
When we were doing the Rave On EP, Manchester Rave On EP, but we didn't know it was called that then. And the guy from the Daily Telegraph came down to interview us. And he's what that Tony Wilson liked, because he'd spoke about me and Paul changing music, indie music to dance music rather than talking about anything else. So he liked that 'cause it's a bit different. And the guy came, and the interview was a Saturday morning at 9:30, and so no one got up. We'd been in the studio till 2, drinking till 6. But Paul said, no, it's a Daily Telegraph, it's a broadsheet, it's pretty, we've got to do it. So we turned up, and I remember it was in a conservatory with all these old records and record players. And me and Paul kind of trumbled in there, hungover, having cups of tea. The guy turned up, was interviewing us. And he said, what kind of music are you listening to? So Paul, Paul's like with his record collection. He was like a shoe collection, shoes and records. We started talking about records and music, and the guy wanted to know about music rather than about the band. And so that's right up Paul's street, couldn't stop him. And then he's asking us what we're working on. And we was actually working on the song Rave On. And he said, what's the song called you're working on the EP? And Paul just picked up this Buddy Holly album and went, Rave On from Buddy Holly. And then after that, the guy wrote about it saying, oh, he's called it Rave On because they go to raves. Now, I'm not sure whether that's the first time they were called, because they were called all-nighters and they weren't called raves before then. Whether that was when they started calling them raves or whether it was that was a coincidence, but around at that time, it was about Buddy Holly. And I knew why, because he didn't want to look like he didn't know what, because Shaun came up with the titles of the songs, but he didn't want to be caught off guard, like not knowing, you know what I mean?
In 1990, the Hallelujah remix was released in Europe, I remember.
Okay.
And you went to Iceland to do a show.
That's where we met.
That's where we met. Yeah, so I was at MTV and I remember sitting and reading Melody Maker or The Enemy, and there was a double-page feature on you. And I remember reading about you and thinking, oh, they sound like naughty boys. It was always, the whole kind of press perception of you was that you were scallies and that you were stealing and that you were bad. So I remember going to my bosses when I saw you were playing in Iceland. I was like, we have to go and do this because they're going to be huge. I remember interviewing Shaun in the Blue Lagoon and he had his ecstasy tattoo on his arm that was spelt wrong.
Ecstasy.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's still got it.
Well, he would. It's a tattoo, isn't it?
No, he never had it inked out.
Corrected.
Never had it corrected.
So last time we were talking about your second album, Bummed. So where was that mixed?
We mixed it in Strawberry in Stockport,
Right.
but recorded in Great Driftfield.
Was that the first time you met John Pennington?
Yeah, in Strawberry.
Yeah.
When he was like 17 years old.
Most of the backing tracks had been recorded, guitar, bass and drums. So most of the time was recording vocals and basically finishing off this entire project.
Tony Wilson had signed the band to his factory label and he was keen to hear how the second album was going to turn out.
The right producer and the right songwriters were chosen. Pop is like movies. Movies, you've got the screenwriter, you've got the director, the producer, and you've got the actors, all the talent. All coming together to make something great. Pop is putting the right package together like in a movie.
When Shaun came in, he was on lots of different substances. I can't tell you what he was taking at the time, but it was, sometimes they'd come in and they'd say, right, okay, we're going to start the session at 2 a.m. So they'd come back in from the hacienda and they'd all be off their brains on probably ecstasy or acid or both. It was absolute chaos because, I'd say, right, okay, we're ready to do a vocal take now. And I'd say to the band, like, where's Shaun? And I'd have to go and find him. And I found him once in the tape store with a little record player that was hooked up to a little stereo system. And it was in the pitch dark, just dancing to ABBA. I don't know, Dancing Queen? I can't remember what it was.
Richard Branson's studio was mega. It had this like outdoor pool and it was winter time, but it had a big blow-up dome over the pool. So it was like bath water when you got in it. Nice. For us coming from where we came from, to living in a mansion with go-karts a race golf kart course at the bottom of the garden and an outdoor pool with a dome over it was kind of special.
Did you think, oh, we've made it now?
No, still has a lot to prove. I thought we was on our way.
What was the turning point where you thought, wow, we're being taken seriously now?
I thought it was going to be when we got on Top of the Pops.
Yeah.
It was like, yeah, I've done Top of the Pops. I've been on Top of the Pops, but it wasn't.
We couldn't get arrested in Manchester. Us and the Stone Roses couldn't get arrested. We're hated in Manchester. It was all that jingly jangly pop, and they hated us. The Manchester press, the Manchester radio station, they all hated us, yeah.
I wanted more and more and more.
What was the first Top of the Pops appearance?
It was Hallelujah, and the Roses did Fool's Gold.
Right, okay.
What a great moment, both going on top of the Pops at the same time. I got told they had screens in pubs in Manchester, big TV screens, so people could watch it. Yeah.
Oh!
Marvellous, that, wasn't it?
We didn't really know the Roses that well. They kept us apart in town. Manny would come in the hacienda sometimes. We didn't really know them that well. We met them as we arrived there. They were on stage doing Run Through. And we walked in and we'd both gone to Richard Crem, or Dick Cream as we called him, Richard Crem, to get our kitted out. And he'd give us all these designer clothes. I'd got this black Gaultier top that zipped up, and Ian had the red version exactly the same. We walked in and we just went, oh no, yeah. And then we met him in the bar and had a drink, and we got on with him really well.
That was a funny day. We was going to do a bit of swapping and changing, weren't we? So I think I was going to go and play the drums for the Mondays, and someone was going to come and do something play the bass for the Roses and so on. Never quite got round to it, but it would have been a good jolly jape.
Yeah, it was great, wasn't it? Yeah.
Oh, they'd made it now. They've got on top of the Pops.
And I was just that was really nervous. I was disappointed because we thought the BBC bar, I thought it'd be full of, like, you know, Nazis and Nazi soldiers and Roman soldiers and, you know, people dressed as cowboys and Indians, you know, and all that. And it was just a load of office staff. It was really boring.
I remember it being such a main event. You know, the people, there was like a big fucking party in Dry Bar. And it was like the Manchester's arrived.
Gonna be millionaires.
Oh, I wish.
Yeah, I wish.
We did it all because I remember we couldn't hear it, couldn't hear the plate feedback, the playback on stage, having some time, and really, because you wouldn't grow up watching Top of the Pops since you was a kid, and I was scared to death, really, really petrified. And I think Paul, well, we all were, we was all petrified.
I don't think the fucking BBC knew what the fuck was going on that day. There was a lot of brandy quaffed, other substances ingested.
Was so glued to it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, if you watch it and it starts off with the drums, it starts off and you can see like everyone's a little bit, yeah, it's hard. And when you look back and you know with experience, no one cares, no one sees, no one's looking, no one really bothers. But at the moment you think you're the centre of not you yourself, but what you're doing is exposed to everything, you know what I mean?
It was a very, very special time, and it's good to see your buds doing well, you know.
And my phone never stopped ringing.
Oh, yeah.
We stayed behind afterwards, and then Tina Turner was on doing a pre-record for the next show. And me and Paul all said, oh, we've got to go and see Tina Turner. Tina Turner, you know, I can Tina Turner, I've got to go and see her. And we walked out, and Paul went for a cig, and it got locked out. We lost him. So probably just walking slow behind, you know what he's like. And me and Ian Brown went in and watched her do this thing here, and she walked past, and Ian Brown went, yes, Tina. And she went, oh, you English boys. And I remember something like that. He says he said something else, but I think that's what she said. And Paul was really gutted and annoyed at us. He thought we'd left him on purpose. And that's all I remember. It was just a great day, but really, really nervous and scary day, that. That's probably the most nervous I've ever been in my life.
I don't think there was rivalry of any sort. We was always like, myself and Ian fucking loved Paul, loved the Mondays, and loved them all as guys, you know, and no, there was never they've one chart place above us or anything. You know, none of that going down. That was never on anyone's agenda. That probably all too smashed to fucking even think about that way. You know.
My dad, he got quite poorly, and that's when they were on Top of the Pops. And he said, I kept saying, come on, Dad, go and get into bed. We'll get you upstairs. I want to see the boys on the telly. And he watched them on the telly. We took him up to bed, and he died the next day. So he got his wish.
I've got a great Wembley story.
Go on.
Come on, what did he say? See if it's the same. I can't really remember.
It was coming off stage and Gaz got hold of me. He said, we've done it. I said, yeah, fucking great. We've played Wembley. He went, no, you dick. I wore knickers all the way through the show. He had women's underwear on.
No, I don't remember that, but we were Spinal Tap.
Oh, that's funny. Didn't he used to wear high heels as well sometimes, Gaz?
Oh, yeah, he has no problem doing that. I don't have a problem with him doing it either. He looks quite sexy. was a good moment. MTV, getting on MTV, thanks to you.
Was it?
Yeah.
Because nobody really knew how to take them. They weren't the kind of band that MTV were used to. MTV very much was set up as like a polished rock outfit, and we had people like, I don't know, George Michael and Culture Club, and these guys were coming along, and they were all not so much Culture Club, but they were pretty much trained into how to do an interview, how to behave like big stars. But the Mondays were like the complete opposite of that. They were a bunch of scallies from a housing estate who turned up, who weren't wearing necessarily the clothes that rock stars wore. They were wearing the clothes that blokes on a football terrace would wear, and it was big style stuff for where they came from, but not for the music press, and not for the certainly not for MTV. And the music press went for them a lot more and a lot quicker than MTV did, because they just didn't know what to make of them.
Yeah, that was a good moment, but I still didn't think, we've made it. I still don't think we've made it.
What would have to happen for you to think, oh, we've made it?
At this point, probably one more album.
We're jumping ahead, but are we going to go there and talk about why there hasn't been one yet when you got back together 10 years ago?
10 years ago.
Like, why has there not been a new Mondays album in the last 10 years?
I think it's because me and our kid aren't getting on.
Right.
We're not even on, I think I said this before, we're not even on the same book, never mind the same page. I think when me and him kind of start liking each other again, maybe there'll be an album. But I've got enough stuff and ideas for at least another 5 Mondays albums. I've never stopped writing.
Reading between the lines, the blockage isn't the band, is it? The blockage is Shaun. Shaun's the one who doesn't want to do an album.
I sent him a text a few years ago saying I've got these great bass lines. Do you want me to send them to you with beats, bass lines and beats? You do what you want with them. And he sent an email, a text back saying there's politics involved. And it's like, what the fuck does that mean? There's politics involved.
That was all he said?
That's all he said.
So you didn't send them?
No, I never sent them. And now I've got 20 of them.
And there have been discussions about doing an album together, haven't there? So how did those discussions go?
So Shaun approached me once with his great idea just before we were going on stage to do a show. He said, right, I've got a solo album. We're going to put it out under Happy Monday's name, and I'll give you a cut of the publishing. And it was like, I can't have a cut of publishing for something I've not done, and I've not even heard your solo album. And he didn't like that. And then probably a year later, Gaz was staying at our house in near Topanga, and we went for a meeting with McGee on Sunset Boulevard. Lovely setting. And McGee came up with Shaun wants to write all the music for the new Mondays album. And it was like, yeah, take my job away, dude. Why don't you?
So Shaun wrote his melodies and lyrics for the Mondays songs as the singer, and the rest of the band you each wrote for your own instruments, right?
So for him to come up with, I've spoke to Shaun, he wants to do all the music for the new album, and me and Gaz just went, no chance. Absolutely no chance. And that was it, just got left there.
There's no new music. And Alan McGee, who's their manager, when I saw him, I was like, why don't they do a new record? And then he goes, I don't want to.
That's not true.
Oh.
No, I'm sure. Not saying that.
Maybe Shaun.
Shaun didn't want to do that. All the band were gagging to do an album, but Shaun wanted to do a solo album and wanted the band to put it out as a Happy Mondays album. They all said, no, we're the band, we want to write the music. That's the truth.
Actually, probably I have heard that.
It's true.
Yeah.
Why do you think he wanted to exclude the band from the album?
Because of his ego. He's huge.
But somebody had to write the music, and if he can't write the music, then wouldn't it have made sense for him to work with the people that he knows he has the magic with?
It makes sense to me and you.
So what do you think the rationale was from his perspective?
He's puddled. I think our kid's puddled to the point of puddleness. Lives in Puddletown.
Who would have done the music?
I don't know. Maybe he just got other people in.
Yeah, instead of the real band.
Instead of the real band.
And then you would have had to tour as though that was your music.
Yeah.
And play the songs.
Yeah, I'd have to be a phony. Yeah. I ain't no phony.
No. No. There was a fifth album, wasn't there, that was officially a Mondays album but wasn't really a Mondays. Tell me about that one.
Oh, yeah. I think Gaz was the only original member, as well as Shaun. It was Gaz and Shaun. There's some good tracks on it. You know, I know Gaz did a lot of work on it, but it's not a Mondays album.
No.
How can it be?
Things started to kick off. You started to become known in Europe.
Yeah.
That's when the final ingredient of the magic cake came along, the fab Rowetta. What an amazing voice she's got. And she's a great woman. We love her, don't we?
I just sometimes talk too much, but usually when I'm drinking, I'm not drinking this week, so I'm all right. I've not had a Red Bull. I used to hang around the Happy Mondays office all the time after seeing them on the other side of midnight and deciding I'm going to join this band. It was Tony Wilson's show. They did performance, and I decided that's the band for me because I'm a punk. And then the first time I'll have seen him, met him, would have been in the office because I was there all the time. Simply Red's manager had the office next door. They managed me, Elliot Rashman. So I was always in the Mondays office trying to get this role that wasn't created yet as the girl from the Mondays because I loved T-Rex and I wanted to be that girl to do something like that with the Monday.
It was Electra's 40th anniversary and they was getting their current artist to do a cover version of a past release on Electra. We got sent a cassette tape with 6 or 7 songs on. Pick one of these. It was all crap. And the best of the bunch was He's Gonna Step on You Again, because I found a loop, a percussion loop, in the song that would work as a groove. So we sampled it and had it going round as a groove, and we was working on this song. And halfway through the sessions, I don't care what anybody says, whether they claim it or not, it's not true. It was me that said, this is too good to go on a compilation album. We need to release this as a single. This is a hit record.
Yeah. When Step On came, it was like, oh my God, this is a proper international record. This is a hit record with a fresh sound and a different approach and a great bunch of not the best musicians in the world, but who had a vibe and a swagger, with a great vocalist with Rowetta, with a character like Bez. It was a moment in musical time that you look back on and go, wow, man, what is this?
Wasn't Tony Wilson, wasn't Steve Osborne, wasn't Shaun Ryder. It was me. Halfway through the session, after I heard Mark Dave put his guitar down, it was like, whoa, this is fucking good.
Talk a bit about Paul Davis. He's kind of a quirky character, isn't he?
Very, very eccentric.
But a sweet guy.
Yeah, very funny, very eccentric, and obviously very creative.
Yeah.
If you're looking at the intro to Step On.
Yeah.
I can't remember what I did, but they say we like that, play it again, and I couldn't, and it was sequenced and cut down, and so I've had a lot of help off a lot of people, including the band. Yeah, I learnt a different way of playing.
Mega.
The first time they ever went to America, Shaun came in with his bag of washing. He'd just bought these jeans and he wanted them washing first. Well, they both had these jeans that was in fashion then. And they were all ripped. And they'd gone, and I thought, oh my goodness, they can't go to America with the holes in the jeans. And I spent hours stitching all these rips up. And they came in, what have you done to our jeans? And you can't go to America with us. We've bought them like that. And after they'd bought these ripped jeans, and I thought they needed sewing because they couldn't take holy jeans to America with them.
We was finishing a tour of America, and it was like, why not stay over here, go into Capitol Studios. I think Nathan found it, and it was cheaper than doing it in London.
Wow.
For us all to stay over in LA, use Capitol Studios, use Frank Sinatra's microphones, which we did, and we all stayed for like 6 weeks. We was in the Oakwood Apartments in Burbank. Yeah, it was. That was kind of a strange place, full of old porn stars and movie stars, and all in like their 80s, doddering around, being at the pool.
Were you partying during that time? Was it like a hedonistic period for you or not?
No, it was serious work. We worked from 11 in the morning till 11 at night.
There was demos, rough songs, but within that rough song, I always knew there was a diamond somewhere.
I remember me and Paul Oakenfold would lock ourselves into a vocal booth where he had his DJ decks set up, and he'd be playing bits of records for me to get ideas. And I'd say, no, don't like that, and he'd skip along and play these 12-inch singles, and it was like, that's good there. Keep playing that bit over and over, and he'd turn it into a loop so I could get a bass line. I remember it on Loose Fit. We did Loose Fit and a couple of other songs me and Paul Oakenfold did.
There was a whole new audience coming out, which was the clubbing scene, and it was going out and taking loads of drugs, going to warehouses, getting off your head, and they were perfect for that. And that's the opposite of stadium rock, which is what MTV was all about prior to then. So I think there was a big culture shock when they came along.
And we did things separately, so it'd be like, right, I used to do my bit in the morning when I'm fresh, when there's nobody about, while they're all in bed. I don't want any interference, don't mind me, because it used to get me back up. When you're in the studio, and Paul was the same, you like to have nobody around, just go in and do your bit. And next thing I turn around and, what's it called, out of The Cult, Ian Ashbury was behind. And people walking in and out, well, what's going on here then?
Paul was quiet, Paul was thorough, Paul would turn up and do what he wanted, what he needed to do. Paul was solid, Paul was always a solid member of the band that you spoke to, and what you asked him to do, he would do, and do quicker than other members of the band.
Right.
And that was Paul's role. You've got a room full of characters. It's not easy to manage characters.
That is it for this week. We're going to be back next week, same time, same place, with part 2 of the 3-part Best Of series. Hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe if you've not already done so, as we have lots more content in store. Join our Patrons Club to support the show and have first dibs on joining our Q&A sessions, as well as some other goodies. More of those are coming soon, and visit the website at paulryder.tv, where you'll find links to the socials. We're playing out with the very first Big Arm single, Flashbacks. Thank you for being here. See you next week. Lots and lots of love to all of you. Big thanks to all of the fab contributors, and of course love and respect to the man himself, the late and the great Paul Anthony Ryder.
Taught me things I never knew. I told you. Listening Productions.